You are standing amidst the ruin and scattered paperwork of the Hillersleben Proving Ground, a secret facility buried deep in the forests of Saxony-Anhalt. It is the summer of 1945. The air tastes of stale ash and damp pine needles, a specific sensory cocktail that defines the end of a war. The concrete bunker around you is cool, a tomb for bad ideas. American troops have already swept through, securing the V-2 rocket parts in the wind tunnel data. But in the chaos of the regime's collapse, the floor is still carpeted with dossiers, blueprints, and frantic scribbles. You kick a pile of debris aside, and a folder slides across the gritty concrete. It's stamped with eagles and swastikas, the bureaucratic stationery of the apocalypse. You pick it up, blowing off a layer of brick dust. The title doesn't scream monster. It reads Sonnengewehr, sun gun. You open the folder expecting plans for a heavy tank, or perhaps a toxic gas. Instead, you are looking at a drawing that resembles a child's geometry homework gone wrong. It is a diagram of the Earth, and hovering above it, tethered by gravity and hubris, is a giant mirror. At first, your brain refuses to scale the image correctly. You assume it's a small device, maybe a signal reflector. But then you read the specifications scribbled in the margins, and the bunker suddenly feels much smaller, the shadows longer. The scientists here weren't planning a gun you could hold. They were drafting a weapon that would essentially turn the Archimedes legend into a planetary threat. You run your finger along the ink lines. The proposed mirror is concave, a massive parabolic dish. The scale is terrifying. A surface area of 3.5 square miles, orbiting 5,100 miles above the Earth's surface. The light in the bunker flickers, a weak bulb struggling against a generator that's running on fumes. It creates a stark contrast to the blinding, sterile brilliance described in these papers. You try to imagine the sheer luminosity involved. The concept is brutally simple, the kind of thing a cruel child does with a magnifying glass on a sunny day. But instead of an ant, the target is a city. Instead of a magnifying glass, it's a metallic sodium reflector assembled in the vacuum of space. The dossier claims that by adjusting the angle of this orbital mirror, the operators could focus the raw, unadulterated power of the sun into a concentrated beam hot enough to boil reservoirs, melt cobblestones, and set the very air of London or Pittsburgh on fire. You turn the page, and the narrative of the technical drawings shifts from horrifying to bizarrely domestic. This is where the Wunderwaffen fever dream takes a sharp turn into the absurd. How, you wonder, did they plan to keep a crew of Nazi astronauts alive in space for months at a time? This was decades before the International Space Station, before Yuri Gagarin, before anyone knew what zero gravity did to the human stomach. The answer, according to the faded blueprint in your hands, is pumpkins. You have to reread the German text twice to be sure. Yes, Kürbis. The engineers, realizing that oxygen tanks would be too heavy to ferry up in rockets that didn't even exist yet, proposed a biological solution. The space station attached to the mirror would be a self-sustaining greenhouse. They planned to line the interior of the station with beds of pumpkins, theorizing that the plant's rapid growth and large leaves would be the most efficient way to convert carbon dioxide back into oxygen. You close your eyes for a second and picture it, a squad of SS officers floating in zero gravity, wearing magnetic boots to stick to the floor, tending to a patch of orbital pumpkins while they wait for the order to incinerate New York. It's a scene so ridiculous it belongs in a Mel Brooks movie, but the math on the page is deadly serious. This wasn't entirely a Nazi invention, you realize as you dig deeper into the file. The concept originated with Hermann Oberth, the physicist often called the father of rocketry. Back in 1923, Oberth had designed a space mirror for peaceful purposes, to melt permafrost, illuminate ports at night, and perhaps control the weather to aid farming. But like so many things in the 1940s, a tool for creation was corrupted into a tool for destruction. The file details how the peaceful mirror was weaponized in theory. The scientists calculated the exact albedo needed, They debated the use of metallic sodium because it was lightweight and highly reflective, ignoring the fact that sodium reacts violently with moisture. Though up there in the vacuum, that wouldn't be a problem. The dust motes dancing in the shaft of light coming from the bunker's entryway catch your attention. They swirl in the draft, tiny chaotic planets. It reminds you of the sheer logistical madness of this plan. The Germans estimated it would take 50 years to build. 50 years. They were losing the war on the ground in weeks, yet they were drafting plans for a construction project that wouldn't be finished until the 1990s. It speaks to a specific kind of delusion, the belief that the Reich would last 1,000 years, allowing them the luxury of half-century engineering timelines. You look at the solar village schematic again. That's what they called the docking station. It features airlocks, living quarters, and those hydroponic pumpkin patches. There's a section on gravity, noting that the station would need to rotate to simulate it, a concept that wouldn't be popularized in science fiction until 2001, A Space Odyssey. Historians and physicists still debate whether the weapon would have actually worked. Some argue the beam would have diffused too much through the atmosphere, creating a really hot summer day rather than a death ray. Others think the optics were sound, and that if they had solved the rocket problem, the sun gun would have been a functioning terror weapon. The sheer audacity of the architecture holds you captive. They detailed the pre-assembly of the Mir sections on Earth, packing them into rockets that looked suspiciously like the V-2s that had terrorized London, but scaled up to size impossible. You trace the trajectory lines. The Mir needed to be in a geostationary orbit, a term they were grasping at before the technology to achieve it was real. There is a strange tactile disconnect between the paper and the idea. The paper is cheap, yellowing wartime stock, pulpy and rough under your thumb. The idea is chrome, silver, glass, and star stuff. It is the contrast between the mud of the battlefield outside and the silent, cold void of space. You realize that this dossier is the grandfather of the Death Star. It is the moment where warfare stopped being about the guy in the trench next to you and started being about a button pressed by a technician thousands of miles away, or in this case, thousands of miles up. The bunker is quiet. The only sound is the dripping of water from a cracked pipe somewhere in the darkness. But in your mind, you hear the hum of the solar village, the magnetic clank of boots, the hiss of airlocks. You imagine the view from that station, the Earth, a blue marble, hanging vulnerable below the giant, focused eye of the mirror. It is a terrifying perspective. To the men in that station, the people below wouldn't even be ants. They would be bacteria. You fold the dossier closed. The swastika on the cover seems less like a political symbol now and more like a warning label on a bottle of poison. The sun gun was never built. The Allies captured the plans, the scientists were absorbed into the American and Russian space programs, Operation Paperclip, and the pumpkin-filled death station remained a drawing. But as you walk out of the bunker into the sunlight of the real world, you instinctively squint. The sun feels warm on your face, a gentle heat. For a split second you check the sky, looking for a glint of silver, a second sun that shouldn't be there. Thankful that the only things growing in the gardens of 1945 are weeds, not orbital oxygen pumpkins.